It's often said that the terrain collection is the third army on the battlefield, and something that's often sadly overlooked. I really enjoy painting up terrain, and I always try and make sure we've got fully painted terrain for the battles that we do. But I know for a lot of people, you know, that if you've got a gaming club, there's a big investment to get a lot of terrain to cover all those tables. So, Games Workshop have released chapter approved Tactical Deployment, which is a new match play battle plan that features rules for bringing half a battlefield's worth of terrain for you that you buy, you think about what you want to take from a strategic point of view, and deploy tactically in order to advantage your games. So big thanks to Games Workshop for sending us this mission pack. This is up for pre-order today alongside Beyond the Veil, the Crusade mission pack, and yeah, this is quite interesting. So where we had the Grand Tournament 2020 pack, which was exclusively on match play, this again is a match play book but with a twist. So essentially you will buy with points some terrain that you'll bring, and you will deploy alternately with your opponent before each battle. So nice way of adding a bit more terrain tactics to it rather than just setting up the battlefield beforehand. So let's have a quick look through and see what we get inside. So Tactical Deployment Games, very similar mission pack to the match play missions, but with a few twists. So what we'll see straight away is that gathering tactical terrain is a big step of the game. Based on the size of the mission, you will have a certain number of points to spend, and there's a minimum and maximum threshold. So you have to at least take, say, 100 points worth of terrain in an incursion style game, up to a maximum of 150 points. Some terrain pieces have got a critical feature keyword, and that determines how many of them you can take. So these are going to have more impressive abilities, bigger impact on the game. And then there's also a cap to the number of times each data sheet can be repeated as well. So you couldn't take, say in an incursion game, you couldn't just take 5 identical pieces of terrain because you can take a maximum of 2. There's also a minimum number of terrain data sheets as well, so you can't go all in on a couple of small ones. You need a mix of different terrain sizes. So it looks a really good way of controlling kind of what kind of terrain each player brings. And yeah, should add for some really varied games, because you're going to have to theme your terrain collection around your army and choose how it's going to react with it. There's going to be quite a few abilities that interact with the armies in different ways. So another bit of an army list building element. So I'm quite looking forward to seeing some tournaments of this, because I think there'll be some quite interesting games. And a brilliant excuse to see some gloriously painted terrain, because there's nothing quite like a game of Warhammer over a battlefield littered with ruins and craters and you know, all kind of stuff to adds that cinematic feel to the games when all the terrain's painted up. So yeah, you also get a bit of a roster so you can log all your stuff on there and any important notes that you need to keep hold of, which is really cool. Other than that, the next stages are very similar to the match play game. So we get a load of new match play missions which are tailored to these types of terrain heavy games, which is cool. What you'll notice a bit differently, we don't set up the battlefield until kind of this end step here. And that is where it's kind of a little sub-game in its own. So you will get, in the missions, which we'll see later, certain points of the battlefield where a terrain piece has to be placed. You have to put your terrain within 9 inches of the centre of one of those markers. You have to put your highest terrain, you have to put your terrain feature with the highest points cost down first, followed by the second highest, and then work your way down. So a lot of the missions have got 2 or 3 points where you have to place a terrain piece. Generally they're going to be your most expensive ones in strategic points on the battlefield, and then you're free to put the rest of it anywhere in your half of the board essentially. There's a few rules to how they go down, so they can't be within 3 inches of the edge of a board, they can't be within 3 inches of another terrain piece. That just helps there not being any kind of rules, quirks and kind of grey areas where maybe you've got 2 pieces of area terrain that are too close to each other. So it just spreads them out a little bit so they are all separate, distinct scenery pieces. Mentions that if hill or area terrain is put down, the objective marker is put on the top of that terrain feature. Buildings, however, cannot be set on top of objective markers. So for buildings we're talking things like the new Hammerfall drop turret and the Necron, I forget what they're called now, the monolith scenery pieces that are coming out with the Necron book. You can't just pop one of those on top of an objective to stop anyone from getting it. You just have to put it nearby if that was the case. But yeah, hill or area terrain can be put on them, so you've got a piece of terrain that you can fight through if you do want to put an objective on it. So that's pretty cool. Other than that, works pretty much the same as match play games. You pick your secondaries, you declare your reserves and transports, and you deploy, same as normal. And then yeah, you'll fight through the missions in a very similar way to other match play games. The main difference being the scenery placement rule. So I quite like that, and it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. While I do really like the concept of this book, there is one fairly major thing that I've got to give it a bit of a bad mark for, unfortunately. And that is the fact that we don't get points for any scenery in the book. I mean, that's a lie. We get an example of this storage frame, which is 40 terrain points, but that is the entirety of the points for terrain that we get here, which is a massive disappointment in my book. I believe Games Workshop are releasing a pack of cards that have the points value and all the rules and the kind of footprint of the terrain on the back of it. I just think it's such a shame they haven't got a points list within this book. Hopefully, I guess going forward, maybe the scenery boxes will have these cards in, or the stats in and points in, maybe. It's a bit of a shame for anyone who's already got a scenery collection, because they're going to have to hunt down these cards. Now, whether in future chapter approves they have an updated list of all the scenery costs in there, that'd be good. I just think it's a bit of a shame that they haven't got it in this book. Really big missed opportunity in my opinion. What we do get is the scenery rules reprinted for the different categories. I just feel even just a list of the points for the different scenery pieces would have been so handy in this, so bit of a shame. We also get a reprint of the secondary objectives, so unlike the new agendas in Beyond the Veil, these are identical to the regular ones in the rulebook. But yeah, they're really cool. I do like how the secondary objectives interact with different missions, give you something to think about. And then we get the missions themselves, which are very cool, which is why I'm torn on this book. The missions are excellent, but it's hard to give it a free pass without the points for those scenery pieces in here. It means that even I've not been able to do a demo game of this because the points wouldn't be available until it's on general release. We could probably fudge it a little bit and have, you know, roughly the same amount of scenery pieces each. But yeah, just a bit of a shame. So if you look at this demo one here though, you can see the yellow markers on the map represent the points where scenery has to go down. So your most expensive piece will go down on one of them, your opponent will do the same, and then you'll put your second most expensive piece, your opponent will do the same, and then you're free to put your scenery anywhere else within your territory. So that's pretty cool. You can do some cool custom scenery setups. You could add trench lines and fortifications and some really cool stuff. It's again just a bit of a shame they haven't got the points in here so you can work those out with this little book without having to get the cards or have them in the boxes. But yeah, some nice interesting layouts, and like we said in the Beyond the Veil review, it's really good to see lots and lots of missions coming out for the game so soon after release. Especially interesting ones like this where, you know, where you put your scenery matters. It's almost part of your army list building in these missions, which I really like. And again, arrange them. You get slightly less missions in this one. I think it's 18 missions in this one compared to the 24 in Beyond the Veil. But again, combined with the match play missions in the Grand Tournament mission pack and the ones in the core rulebook, you've got an absolute load of different missions to play through. And to be fair, you could probably adapt these for regular match play as well if you didn't want to use the scenery placement and the scenery kind of buying rules in this book. What I would say if you were adapting them for match play though, just make sure you've got some scenery pieces on these marked points, because that kind of impacts how the battle goes. Obviously, you can have a lot more fun if you use the rules from this pack, because you can have some really interesting battlefields. I think there's going to be some real kind of strategy and tactics to how you set up your battlefield for these games, and I'm really interested to see what people do. And then, yeah, as with the other mission packs, the rest of the rules is the basic rules reprinted from the main rule book. So, yeah, I do feel they could have maybe sacrificed some of the core rules here and just added a sheet at the back, maybe, with all the points values, because without that, it just seems a bit of a shame. It is a really cool product, and I do like the different missions and the way of placing the terrain and buying the terrain as part of your army. I just really do feel they should have come with the points values, or maybe packaged with the cards with the different scenery effects and points on. But yeah, it's really good for match play, and I suppose it's just be conscious of the fact you're going to have to buy those the cards with the points and the profiles on if you do want to make full use of this supplement. So yeah, we'll try and get some games of tactical deployment in as well on the website. We do have some match play videos up, and yeah, we're looking forward to trying some scenery heavy rules of 40k to mix things up a little bit for 9th edition. So until next time, we will see you later.